What do you think?
I think we're dead meat. Real dead meat.
You're dead meat! Go ahead and laugh, you guys. If I ever find a little bastards that did this, they're dead meat.
Welcome to the Dead Meat Podcast. In fact, the 100th episode of the Dead Meat Podcast, an extension of the YouTube channel Dead Meat. Oh, I'm James. 100 episodes and I'm still forgetting.
And I'm Chelsea. We're engaged. And we like to get scared together. Yeah, I think adding that little bit in there about it being the 100th, like, just screwed your brain up.
Yeah, it was a 0-hour edition that I just did right there on the fly.
We are, it's the 100th episode. And
I mean, there have been more than 100 because we've done bonus
We've done
ones,
bonus, but then, like, officially number 100.
Yep.
So we're doing 1998's Psycho Remake by Gus Van Sant. And if you've been listening to the podcast for a while, if you've been with us since the beginning, you know that this is one of our favorites. This comes up on the podcast all the time. It's been kind of a runner.
How did it even start, man?
It started in the Would You Rather episode. I did a Would You Rather about, would you rather have a Critters-themed wedding or a 1998 Psycho-themed wedding? But the catch is, like,
you have to tell people it's not the original.
Right, because
it's the remake.
Aesthetically, a Psycho 1998 wedding is easier to pull off than a Critters wedding. It looks way more normal, but, like, you have to explain, no, it's not Psycho, it's the remake of Psycho. So, anyway, I forget what we picked.
I forget, too.
I think you might have picked Critters. I don't remember.
Huh.
Yeah. But, so, we're I think I've watched Psycho in both iterations 3 times this week. Like, I feel like it's my whole life.
Well, yeah, we rewatched
Psycho.
both. Well, we rewatched the original, and then I don't think I had ever seen the remake, and I know you hadn't.
Dude, I hadn't either. And
so
even though it's like
it.
our favorite, I'd never fucking seen it.
You're gonna keep
it just
saying
became
that, huh?
such a runner, and I loved it before even seeing it. That's how strong my
1998 Psycho by Gus Van Sant is pretty much taking the original Psycho, taking the original script, taking most of the shots from the original movie, and deciding, hey, this movie's good. What if it had more butts in it?
Yeah, lots more butts.
That's pretty much the only additions
And
is
some
butts and
jerking off,
masturbation.
yeah. It is fascinating. I think spending time with it this week, because it's easy to laugh at it, and, like, watching it is a chore.
Which,
like,
I will continue to laugh at and say that watching it is a chore. This movie, why does it exist?
right, but it gets into, like, and this is what I want to spend a lot of the
Some
episode
Kaufman
talking about.
shit.
This is such film school, like, the role of the author,
Like
or
theory
like
shit.
reproduction of art. Was it art in the age of mechanical reproduction or whatever? It's like that
Sure.
essay that everyone in film school has to read. But, like, I don't know. It really is, like, I've truly never seen a remake like it. Like, maybe except the Disney remakes.
Oh,
And those
yeah.
are terrible also.
That's interesting that Disney is taking a page out of Gus Van Sant's book from 1998 and pretty much, because Lion King,
It's
I mean,
why
I haven't seen
we
it,
didn't even see Lion King.
but it sounds like it's the same kind
It's
of
the
thing.
same shit where it's like, oh, cool, we're just gonna, what if this but updated?
Yeah, 'cause
like,
that's what this
Psycho
is.
what if Psycho but not black and white anymore, and with modern actors, and
And
Lion
more
King
butts.
and more butts. And Lion King is just, well, what if the Lion King but 3D instead of 2D?
Does Lion King have more butts too?
I can't confirm. I haven't seen it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Curious.
Not sure if there's more literal buttholes in that
Let us
movie.
know. Yeah, there's a butthole.
There's definitely a butthole in this. We'll talk about that too. right on time, Lucy. Just right. Lucy's like, buttholes.
Somebody said
Somebody
buttholes.
said buttholes. I'm gonna stick my butthole right in the camera. That's what Lucy's here for. So Gus Van Sant is a good filmmaker, is the thing. Like, Gus Van Sant is a filmmaker, capital F. Like, My Own Private Idaho, Drugstore Cowboy.
Love Drugstore Cowboy.
Yeah,
the year before this was Good Will Hunting,
Good Will
right?
Hunting, which is also great. That Good Will Hunting is why he was able to make Psycho. So, like, he made this reputation for himself being an artist. His films are all beautiful. He has,
It's like indie too, right?
Indie, yeah. He has such a distinct vision and voice. He also did Milk. So a lot of his movies deal with LGBTQ issues.
Yeah.
I know my own Private Idaho does. I haven't seen Drugstore Cowboy.
Was he considered alongside in the early 90s that wave of like indie filmmakers like Soderbergh who got really acclaimed? Yeah, because I feel like Drugstore Cowboy was 89, I think. So it's in that.
I think he's in that kind of class of 90s filmmakers for sure.
Yeah, which I really dig.
Yeah. So then apparently this had always been kind of a weird pipe dream of his. He even back in the 70s, he recreated the shower scene for some, I think it was like some theater group he was in.
Wait, how old is he?
That's a good question. How
I
old
wouldn't
is
have
he
imagined
now?
that, because I would have imagined he'd be like a late 20s filmmaker when he made
No,
this. No,
I think
he's older than that. Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna look up how old he is. He's 67 now.
Okay, and this was 22 years ago, so he was 45 then?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that seems right. But yeah, so he like they showed clips of this in I watched the little documentary about this movie that came with the DVD. No commentary track though.
Yeah, that's the thing is with different releases, you always get different special features, and I guess we have the box set for Psycho, which has a whole bunch of cool stuff.
Well, it should have a commentary track.
But it doesn't have a commentary
I don't know.
track.
It might. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Even though one exists for this movie.
Yeah, there is one, and I was dying to watch it, but nope.
You were dying to watch this movie a third time.
I really was. But no, I watched this little documentary instead, and they showed clips of this. You know, he's always had like a fixation with Psycho and has always really liked it. And I guess when he was coming up as a filmmaker, he'd have meetings with studios, and Universal especially would be like, look, we have all this crap in storage where it's either like movies we'd be okay with remaking or scripts that no one's picked up yet. So, you know, just let us know what you're interested in. And he was like, oh, I want to redo Psycho. And they all just laughed him out the door, right?
Yeah.
But then he gets nominated for Oscars. he does Good Will Hunting, and oh no, now he is an award-winning filmmaker. He's got some more leeway, and finally he goes, I want to remake Psycho. And he even said, like, I'm doing, because, you know, remakes are not unfamiliar to Hollywood at that point, but like a straight up like shot for shot remake is unheard of. I don't think that's a thing. Even Hitchcock had remade his own films.
Yeah. I forget which one.
I'm blanking on which one it was, but it wasn't like shot for shot. But yeah, the idea of like doing something shot for shot was so insane, but he insisted on it. And yeah, with this power that he is granted by being an award-winning filmmaker, which is, I think it's kind of a big part of the reason why I love that this exists. Like someone on Twitter, and I wish I'd written you down. I always do this. Like I remember someone on Twitter said something really smart or funny, and I forget to write your name down. But they pointed out that this is like Tom Hooper winning Oscars and stuff for Les Mis, and then being like, I have so much power, I'm gonna make Cats, you know? And so I love this idea of someone's post-award movie being their shitpost movie. They're like, you know what? I can truly do whatever I want. This is the only window of time probably I'm gonna get where I'm gonna get the money and support I need to make something truly stupid.
It's so stupid. There's no reason for this movie to exist, because I have, you know, people know by now that I have a weird thing with remakes. I have a higher bar for remakes for me to be satisfied by them. And it's, you know, for me, I think Suspiria has one of the best remakes, even though personally I didn't love the remake itself as a remake.
It's fast.
It's great because it takes like the kernel of the idea and does something completely different with it.
Yeah.
And like that I think is amazing. And I think the Friday the 13th remake is good because in a totally different way, it's taking a lot of the same things but just kind of distilling it to a more updated, just more pure form. But like this is like Quarantine remaking Wreck, where it's like a shot for shot
where it's
thing.
the same.
But even then, that was for a kind of financial reason. Yeah. Oh, this movie's in Spanish. I bet American audiences would like to see it in English. This, everyone has seen Psycho.
Yeah.
Everyone knows Psycho. This movie lost money.
Yeah.
Like a lot of money.
It's funny because in the documentary, I think it was because a lot of the people who worked on the original Psycho did work on this.
Yeah.
He had a lot of people come back, which is fascinating.
Hitchcock's daughter.
Hitchcock's daughter, yeah.
The way I feel about it is I'm very flattered, and I know my father would be flattered that people want to remake his movies.
Right.
I think it's wonderful.
They kind of mention, well, it's the 90s. Maybe people don't really know. But, dude, it's so funny. They cut to, I don't know what the fuck this is from. It's some man on the street shit at Universal City Walk. I was dying.
Yeah.
I'll put in the clips where they're
90s City
interviewing 90s teens at City Walk, and they're like, who Hitchcock? I don't know who that is, bro.
Psycho? No, I never seen it. Never heard of it.
Hitchcock, is that what you said? I never heard of the man.
So they're like, okay, maybe, let's try updating it. And, but also I think, I don't know if Gus Van Sant has said so openly, but I think part of it is just the idea of experimenting with, like, why a film works as well as it does. Like, why is Psycho such a classic? And this remake especially proves, like, a film is such a time capsule.
You can't just lifelessly copy one,
right,
and have another classic.
Right. You can't. It's amazing how much relies on the original author's voice, the specific actors you have in it, like just all the right pieces coming together. And I think something I found so fascinating about the idea of remaking something shot for shot, and something I hadn't considered until they interviewed her on set, was the editor for the 98 Psycho thinking, her thought process is so bizarre, because she's like, well, okay, we're doing a shot for shot remake, so theoretically I should be editing it second for second, cut by cut. But you are not working with the exact same, even though it's a copy, it's different actors. Their cadence is going to be different. The timing of everything is going to be different. Like, slight differences in camera movements. Like, it's going to be a different thing, even though it is identical. It is by its nature completely different. So the editor is like, how do I treat this? Do I treat it like it is still the original?
Yeah, do you line them up in the timeline and just put the cuts?
Or do I work with it like I am working with something that I've never seen before? And do I edit it like I would edit something? It's so, that I think made the whole thing extra interesting to me.
I mean, I can't even begin to describe my first day, not really knowing what I should do, whether I should copy the way everything was edited originally. Yeah, it's a different way to edit a movie. I mean, we know that things are going to be a certain way, and I still have to go through all these bins and find the best pieces.
And I think Gus Van Sant, because I respect him a lot, and he is, again, like I said, and it's why I pointed out his background, is he is a filmmaker. He loves film. He understands film and cinema and knows what he's doing. He's not like a blockbuster. I mean, even a lot of blockbuster filmmakers are very good, but he's not just there to kind of mechanically make something and it's out and it makes money. Like, he has a voice and vision, and he leans more toward the artistic end of film rather than the commercial end of things. So I think it truly was an experiment, and it makes me think of there's so many reproductions of famous paintings, and they make this point in the documentary too, where the Mona Lisa, for example, there are so many replicas of it, and contemporary ones too. These are replicas that were done in the time that Da Vinci was alive. He would have it, his apprentices would copy his painting, and Da Vinci himself would copy his master's paintings and learn. So there's this tradition of sitting and copying a piece of work to understand how it was put together, and to learn from that, and to learn from your elders, and understand how something was pieced together.
That makes sense to me, but to make it an actual studio
That's
film,
what I mean.
it
is fun.
So
it is
bizarre.
bizarre when you throw in the idea of but this also is a product meant to make money.
Yeah, and
this
released
is not
in theaters.
Just a fun thing that Gus Van Sant did in his backyard. This is a studio.
Well, that's the
funded
thing, is that during some of these scenes, especially your favorite scene from the original, which is Norman Bates talking to Marion Crane, when he brings those disgusting looking sandwiches for her to eat.
Yeah.
In both versions, they look gross. But we both said at the same time that this feels like a film school exercise, or you said forensics. It feels like new actors taking a well-known scene and trying to do it in their own way, but they're kind of hampered by the fact that they know the original performances, so they're kind of mimicking those, but not exactly right. that's why this film doesn't work for me, is because, and I think you said it while we were watching it, that nobody really feels sincere because we've already seen all these lines said by the original actors. And I think Anne Hesh does great. Especially a lot of her facial acting, less so with the line delivery, because again, it just feels like you're mimicking someone, but a lot of her face acting is really good. I like Vince Vaughn in general.
Yeah.
But he's just not as, I don't know, engaging or as electrifying as Anthony Perkins is in that
how
original.
can you be,
How can you
though?
be?
That's
Why
the
would you take this
thing.
role?
He is one so young in this behind the scenes thing. He's so cute. Like he really, you can tell he is extremely nervous about this entire thing and doesn't quite understand how to feel about it. But it's so cute. He seems like he's really engaged with it. And there's like all this footage of him picking out like what hair he should have. And he seems like super engaged with the material and like excited to be there. And it's very endearing. But
I think that he does his best work in this movie when he is like nervous Norman Bates. And I think that when he like does the switch to more threatening or more like trying to be intimidating, I think that's when it kind of falls apart for me. But I do think he does the kind of like shy, maybe a little bit too choppy with the gum chewing.
I think he's kind of adorable in this movie, which
Yeah.
like Norman's supposed to be, I think.
Yeah, and they were both the same age when they were in their
Yeah.
respective films. They were both 28 years old when
Yeah.
Anthony Perkins and Vince Vaughn did this.
Yeah. It's weird. I was wondering watching this if they were allowed to look or watch the original. Like if I was directing this, I don't think I would want my actors to watch the original.
But they had to have.
But they did. No, they did. Confirmed. He said you can reference it if you want, like do what you want with it if you want it. So I think that makes it a little harder maybe on your actors too, because so let's say you're playing Norman Bates and it's like, all right, I don't want to just imitate Anthony Perkins, but I've already seen that performance, so now I'm actively choosing to act in a way that is not like Anthony Perkins. So how, you're like setting up this barrier where it's like, okay, if I'm reading the script and I'm interpreting this character, what happens if my interpretation of this character is genuinely very close to Anthony Perkins? And it's like, well, now I can't do that. So now I feel like you're forcing yourself into this performance that isn't natural to you.
I can kind of relate, and it's why when I'm covering a movie on the kill count, I won't watch any other YouTube videos about it or listen to like We Hate Movies if they covered it, because I'm worried if I come up with the same joke independently, if I listen to their stuff or watch a video first, it'll be the same thing, me actively being like, well, I could have come up with that on my own, but now I have to do something different.
Yeah.
How are they supposed to do it? Are they supposed to mimic the original people? And I said, no, I think you should deliver a performance of your own using the script, and you can refer to the original, but it has to be like a person, rather than a sort of impersonation.
Watching this is a total snooze. Like it's exhausting because especially if you've just watched the original, which we had, and it hit me, I think the first shot of the movie, I just went, oh my God, this is the fucking same. Like, I think that's when it just hit me like just a wall. I was like, oh no, we're just watching the same fucking thing over again. I can't, I
know,
knew
and
it
the same
in my head, but just
like the same dialogue, even though it doesn't work in 1998. Like in that first scene, she's talking about her boss having excess acid.
Oh, I better get back to the office. These extended lunch hours give my boss excess acid.
No one would say that in 1998.
It's so funny because they brought the screenwriter back, Joseph Stefano. I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but he did the screenplay for Psycho, and they brought him back to do the screenplay for this. So it is different in parts. And he talks in the documentary about how he had to update some stuff because certain things, even though it's so funny because it still sounds so old fashioned, and I wonder if that's even just a product of like
him being an older
an older dude.
For sure, because if he wrote the one in 1960, like how old would he be here? You don't write that script when you're 20. So let's say he's 25 at the youngest there. This is Well, I guess that's not that old, but still, he's probably in his 60s when he's writing this new one.
And they go, well, what about all the language? So some really hokey language, old-fashioned language. And I said, well, okay, you changed those.
Some of this sounds a little old-fashioned for some reason.
He did add another zero to the amount of money Marion Crane steals, though.
That's right. Instead of $40,000, it's $400,000. And
That
also,
makes sense.
one of the big changes is the end monologue with Robert Forster, who I did not know was in this and was a very pleasant surprise.
I mean, this cast.
The cast is incredible.
What's different about Robert Forster's speech?
In Robert Forster's speech, there's no mention of Norman Bates being a transvestite. All of that is gone.
Oh, okay. Does that have to do with Gus Van Sant being a gay man, maybe more sensitive to...
Yeah, I'm sure that's a big part of it, is he is more sensitive to those kinds of issues. And also it seemed like the screenwriter, maybe even independently, came to that conclusion that this language is outdated and we wouldn't be talking like this anymore. It was really interesting watching the screenwriter with Gus Van Sant talking about not just that scene edit, but also just generally whether or not they were having Vince Vaughn play Norman Bates as gay. Even though, no, Anthony Perkins in the original is not playing him as gay. It's an interpretation many people have of the film. Anthony Perkins' homosexuality is something that, it like bleeds into his work because it was such a big part of his life. And it's something that like now, that's like one of the things we associate with him because I think even when that movie came out, it was like rumored and stuff. And
because I'm assuming he was closeted back then.
Yes,
in
and
the
I think that
60s,
was another thing that made Psycho a little controversial because he was just by himself. Him existing was controversial,
of
right?
course, yeah.
Yeah. So, but it was fascinating. The screenwriter says, no, I didn't put those undertones there, but I understand why people think they were there. And, I rewatch it and I can totally see why people interpret it that way. Maybe subconsciously that's there.
It certainly never entered my mind that I was writing about a man who was gay. I think these kinds of things began to be said really much, much later when homosexuality was much more accepted. People go back over old movies and look to see what might have been a subtle implication because we couldn't do more. And lots of people find that, and I think it may very well be there.
He seemed very open to the idea of it being read that way. And it was really, it was cool seeing someone from that era not being defensive of their work like that and being very open to other people's interpretations of it. But in this version, Gus Van Sant, when they ask, they're like, is Vince Vaughn playing him gay? Gus Van Sant says no. Like, immediately he says no.
Yeah.
We're not. And Vince Vaughn is like one of the most heterosexual men, I feel like. As far as I know, I mean, I think most of us know him from fucking
like old school,
yeah, all those movies. He's such a bro, like Wedding Crashers and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I thought that was really fascinating though, and there's something really interesting about the dynamic of you have Hitchcock, who is a straight dude directing Anthony Perkins as Norman versus Gus Van Sant directing Vince Vaughn. As that dynamic is flipped,
reversed,
which is really interesting.
I'm also curious to revisit the sequels to the original, especially since Anthony Perkins had more creative control in those over the character, and I believe he ended up directing one of those. So I'm curious if that interpretation of the character comes out more to the forefront of the sequels.
I haven't seen the sequels.
I did, but when I was a kid, so I don't remember them. So very curious about those.
So again, by remaking it so directly, just by the changes in authors and actors, you then are adding different undertones than would exist in an original, which is interesting. Like, there's totally interesting things about this, but you have to get very film school about it.
This movie is interesting in theory.
It is. It truly is interesting in theory. Again, watching it is so fucking exhausting. One of the most exhausting scenes, and again, something that is so interesting in theory, is after Marion Crane is murdered in the shower, got this long ass scene of Norman Bates cleaning up the motel. And I even asked you while the movie was going, I'm like, does this happen? Like, I know he cleans up in the original, but is it this fucking long?
It is.
And it is.
Yeah, in the original, it goes on for a long time.
But it's crazy how in the original, it doesn't feel that long. I mean, it still feels long, but it doesn't feel this long. And it's fascinating that I think the reason for that is, and again, this is what's so cool about having the same screenwriter do both movies, is he said the original movie, that scene is there because we take Psycho for granted now. Everyone knows the shower scene. We know it's going to happen. We know that the main character is going to die. Like, we know all these things going into it because it's such a cultural touchstone. But back then, it was such a big twist to the point where Hitchcock was not letting people come into the theater late.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
we talked about that in our gimmicks episode. Part of the advertising for Psycho was like, no one is admitted late to this film. One, because you get the twist ruined, and two, if you show up and the lead actress on all the posters isn't there, you're like, well, what the fuck am I watching? It's confusing. So like, truly no one knew that twist was coming, and so you need this scene of Norman Bates cleaning for like 5 minutes so that the audience has time to truly understand that character's dead.
Yeah.
You have time to, it's like when you're scripting a comedy, or if you're doing stage comedy and something gets a laugh, you give it some time to breathe, or else everything after that's going to get stepped on and the audience is going to miss stuff. This is like the same thing. It's like a laugh break, but not. It's like a break for the audience to kind of absorb.
Them reconcile that fact.
Yeah. But what this turns into in this remake is, so it's the 90s. We all know Psycho. It's a cultural touchstone, like I said, and we all are waiting for the shower scene, and it happens. We don't necessarily need that moment.
That decompression.
We don't need that time to like accept that character is dead. And so you're just sitting there like, oh my God, why am I watching Vince Vaughn just change all these towels? I don't fucking care. It's so long.
That shower scene.
Oh boy. We gonna talk about that?
We should. Because, I mean, one, I think that the shots of Norma Bates,
They look weird.
They look weird, and they're way too long. And you know what? Maybe it's the same thing. Maybe it's the same length of the shots in the original.
Apparently, I think a lot of the edits in the shower scene, there's a bit more lingering because he's allowed to, because the standards for film violence are not the same.
But it ruins it.
It does.
Like,
It's not
the
as good.
longer shots of Norma, quote unquote, with the blonde wig, the face is silhouetted out, so you still can't see it's Vince. But like, those shots go on for so long that I'm like, this looks silly. Whereas in the original, it's so much fast cutting back and forth. And yeah, maybe it was done for to get around standards or whatever, but it also made for a more effective scene editing wise.
Yeah.
And in this one, the shots go on for longer, and you see that, there's not like that contact being made.
Yeah.
But then the big difference in the shower scene, which I wish you had found the commentary, because I would love to hear what they said over this
James,
shot.
I'm dying.
Anne Hesh dies and falls over the tub, and it's an overhead shot, and she's bare ass naked, and it is you see her butthole.
You see her butthole. I don't know how else to say it. You see Anne Hesh's butthole, and we both react like I don't think we believed what we'd just seen. But there's a straight up butthole.
Short shot either.
No, it's just there. You're just looking at it.
And I guess they prep you for it because you see Vigo's butt in the first scene.
But you're not seeing whole.
You're not seeing Vigo's butthole. No, you see his whole butt, but not his butthole.
Yeah, I can't think of any movie where there is straight up asshole in it.
It's so weird.
It's so weird. And
it has a Twitter
account.
I thought
it does have a Twitter account.
Kevin Smith has talked about it.
Kevin Smith has talked about it in some capacity. I forget if it was during one of his Q&A panels or something, but he.
So we're not making this up.
We're not alone. Other people have noticed, and finding that fucking Kevin Smith quote where he talks about it in the most Kevin Smith way too. I was I felt very validated, but also why?
Why did Anne agree to that?
I know
it's not necessary.
And I'm just, did they think could they not tell when they were filming and then they're editing and they're like, oh no, you can kind of see her asshole too late? I have so many questions.
Yeah.
I can't even put the fucking clip in. I
no,
guess I can.
You please don't.
Yeah. I guess I'm sure you can find the shower scene on YouTube, because otherwise it's totally fine. It's just the shower scene from Psycho, and then there's you're just seeing whole at the end.
It's so weird, man.
Yeah. So it's funny because behind the scenes they started talking about the shower scene, and I'm like, okay, I want to get some answers here. And they just wouldn't stop talking about the fucking shower curtain. And I'm like, I don't care. I just want to know about the butthole. And they didn't address it at all. Oh, man.
There's a lot more sex in general here because,
Yeah.
like I said, you see Vigo's bum right in the beginning. He's standing naked by a
Vigo
window.
Mortensen.
Although that honestly makes for such a good joke.
It's very
because
funny.
in the original film, while she's leaving, he's like, "Here, I'll come with you," and she's like, "No, you have to put your shoes on," and then leaves. And it's just like, she's just trying to get out of
That
there.
guy truly, he's fully dressed but needs to put his shoes on.
Yeah, but in this one, Vigo's standing there butt ass naked, and you also see like a deep V from the front. But she's leaving, and he's like, "Let me come with you," and she's like, "No, you have to put your shoes on," and he's butt ass naked.
It's
so
funny.
It's very
It's very
funny.
funny, yeah.
It's great that they take that same line, and it's more funny.
I like when they diverge a little bit like that, where technically everything is still kind of the same. It's the same shots, the same lines, but you're able to, because it's the 90s, update it to where you can get away with those little visual jokes.
Yeah.
And I think it's weird. That joke to me even feels very Hitchcock.
Yeah, it does.
It's
for
just
sure.
very sly, and yeah, I love it.
So aside from the butts, we do have a shot of Vince Vaughn masturbating when he looks through the peephole.
Infamous. That's like, I think if anyone can think, if people know this movie and they can think of one change, that is something that's different from the original. It's the scene of Vince Vaughn masturbating.
It's when he looks through the hole at Marion undressing for the shower, and you don't see the masturbation, but the sound.
Yeah, you get some sound.
You hear it for sure.
It's so gross.
It's real gross. And then there's also when she's looking around when Julianne Moore, who plays the sister, is looking around the house at the end, she goes into Norman Bates's room and she finds like a porno mag.
Yeah.
So we see some more breasts
Norman
there.
is like a sexual person.
Very
in
sexual
this one.
person here.
And it's fascinating because, again, you have to remember it's the same screenwriter. So essentially a lot of this is maybe confirming.
Is this like what he wanted to do but couldn't in 1960?
Or just like addressing or confirming theories about Norman, because Norman does have the little peephole where he spies on Mary, and that's why he gives her the room next to the office, and so he can look through the wall at her. And we don't, obviously there's no masturbating, but like that's implied.
Yeah.
He's aroused by her, and they do say that in the original, that he is aroused by her, and that's why he kills her. But yeah, so that's interesting, at least for making the subtext text.
Yeah. And then there is one additional shot. It's when William H. Macy, who is playing Arbogast, the detective, gets slashed in the face at the top of the stairs. There's this weird cut to a woman in her underwear, like laying on a
in
rope.
bondage.
Yeah.
And then there's another,
a deer
it's
or
like
an
a
animal.
calf, I think.
Okay, yeah, like standing in the road.
I don't understand.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
What the fuck?
They talked a little bit about that part in the documentary and how the cinematography during that fall is so weird. Like when he's going down the stairs, it's one of my favorite shots because it looks so fucking fake, but I think it's a bit on purpose. It's super dreamy and weird. They were like, all right, let's just kind of keep running with that if it's super dreamy and weird, and maybe he's seeing flashes of something before he, but dude, I don't really get it, but I understand the logic of putting in some weird dream imagery, but in practice it just is super random.
It's fucking weird, man. And that's, those are the horny additions that Gus Van Sant made to Psycho.
Yeah.
All those butts and
but
porn,
like,
and
again, I just think of like where he was at in his career. Like I can only hope to like be nominated for Oscars and be extremely respected as a filmmaker, and then my project I do after I've earned all this clout and I'm at like the peak of my career is I'm gonna remake a classic exactly, but just add in some shots of characters masturbating. Like that's so fucking
like Citizen
funny.
Kane.
Yes, except he's masturbating at one part. It's like that's so funny, and I love it. I think that idea of it just feels like a big troll, and
Yeah,
I think it's really, really great.
Also, Flea is in this movie.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about.
Red Hot
It's like
Chili
how it's
Peppers is
like
Flea.
Yeah, like I want to make the movie where it's Citizen Kane, it's identical. Someone's just jerking off in one scene, and also Flea is there playing a minor character.
The minorest character.
The character who's like, "Hello, ma'am, how can I help you?" is Flea for some reason.
While we're on the subject of the cast, already mentioned Julianne Moore, who the year prior to this was alongside Vince Vaughn in another little movie called The Lost World Jurassic Park.
I think she most successfully successfully plays her character differently than the original.
Oh, for sure. Her character is this 90s grungy, like, take no shit character.
They did an edit back-to-back in the documentary of how she delivers one of the lines, and it's so interesting how different her delivery is and how differently she interprets this character and updates her. Like,
her version's way more pissed.
I want to talk to Marion, and I want her to tell me it's none of my business, and then I'll go.
Bob.
I want to talk to Marion, and I want her to tell me it's none of my business, and then I'll go.
Yeah, that's exactly. It's the contrast. Is she's like confused and angry and yelling a lot, and
she has a Walkman.
Yeah, that's right. Another addition, and again, this is my addition to Citizen Kane. Is Orson Welles goes, "Hey, wait up! I gotta get my Walkman."
There's no need for that line, but they put it in there just to remind you it's 1998.
Yeah.
Let's go see Al Chambers.
Who's he?
They're deputy sheriff around here.
Let me get my Walkman.
It's gonna happen, guys. I'm making my Citizen Kane where he has a Walkman around his neck in one scene just to like remember it's different.
So Viggo Mortensen, Julianne Moore, Vince Vaughn, obviously. William H. Macy as Arbogast. Philip Baker Hall, whose head is hanging in our bathroom.
We have
randomly.
a giant. I wish I grabbed it. We have a giant poster of his head for some reason.
I got it from when I worked at Fox. I don't know what he did at Fox.
It scared me so much when you first put that up, and now it freaks people out when they go in there and you close the bathroom door,
Hall's
and
head.
it's like 1.5 feet tall.
Yeah, it's just his head on a white background.
Yeah.
But he's like the sheriff near the end.
Mm-hmm.
Robert Forster, like you said, is the detective. Flea. And there's also, I feel like there was one other person I wanted
Rita
to point.
Wilson is the office mate. That like her coworker in the movie who's like, I have tranquilizers in my bag.
And also, it isn't Ron Howard's dad her boss?
That's right. Ron Howard's dad is the boss. Yeah.
Yep. But Vince Vaughn does look like The Rock through half this movie.
Oh man.
He's wearing.
Can we talk about the costumes?
Oh yeah, please.
In
That's a
general?
great thing to talk about because this movie. Go ahead.
So okay, and again, I'm gonna say that like this big asterisk. This was on the IMDb trivia and was not mentioned in the behind the scenes thing. So I don't know if it comes from the commentary or not. But apparently, the costumer was not fully aware that this was going to be updated to be set in the late 90s, and so she went and bought a ton of 60s looking costumes, and so Anne Hesh looks like she's on Mad Men this whole time.
Yeah.
William H. Macy looks like he's going to a murder mystery party. There is a quick little montage in the documentary of him trying on different hats where they're picking out different hats for his character, and it's very nice. I like it. William H. Macy's so cute in that documentary. They have just the raw green screen footage of him falling, and it's God, such good acting.
Oh, I know who I wanted to comment on. The car dealer is James LaGrosse.
Oh my God, duh.
Who played fucking...
He's Mike in Phantasm 2.
Yeah, he's Random Mike.
Yes.
He's like weirdo, bizarro Mike, who's just in Phantasm 2.
The rest of that series, Mike is played by the guy from the first one.
Yeah, is it A. Michael Baldwin?
Michael Baldwin, yeah.
And he's very nice in real person.
Oh, he's so sweet.
Cast and crew of Phantasm.
We spent like the whole weekend with him at Scaricon in New York.
Oh, that's right,
because we caught the airport shuttle back with him and David Naughton, and it was a lot of fun. We just kind of like hung out with those dudes.
That's so cool.
At this like very tiny convention. Yeah.
Yeah, but the car dealer in the remake is the guy who played that character.
He's just this weird
Phantasm
not
2.
Mike in Phantasm 2. It's so bizarre.
That's so weird, man.
He is like a steadily working TV actor. Like he's still in stuff. So
good for him.
Yeah, that's the life, man. They have footage of him literally watching the movie, like the car dealer, and trying to remember his cadence and his. It's nuts. They're the behind the scenes footage is everyone just watching the movie and then going and doing the exact same. It's so crazy. I know. Why does it exist? But yeah, so the weird like 60s costumes, and yeah, Vince Vaughn for a bit of this movie is wearing this black turtleneck that is just poured onto him. It's so tight. It's like this knit sweater that is so tight that when the light hits it certain ways is see-through,
it's like tucked into his jeans.
It's tucked into these 90s jeans with a belt. He looks like The Rock.
He is one chain necklace away from looking like The Rock in that picture.
Yeah.
One thing I don't like that they updated is the sign for the Bates Motel, because it just looks like any fucking 90s motel in this new one, whereas the classic was a classic. And yeah, when we see it, it's just like, That's the Bates Motel, dude.
Yeah, the original Bates Motel sign is so iconic. Although I do think it's a very funny tongue-in-cheek joke that the new Bates Motel sign has newly renovated
That's funny.
on it and color TV. Like,
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's funny. Yeah.
We were so curious watching this, like where they filmed it, because the motel looks the same,
Mm-hmm.
and it turns out that it is the same motel. They just put up a new sign, and the house literally was constructed in front of the old Bates house.
It's a new facade
It's a
because it
new
looks very
facade.
different and not as good in my opinion.
No, it's a weird redesign,
Yeah.
but it is literally right in front of where the
Do we
house
even
is.
see part of the old house,
Oh,
or does it completely mask it out?
I think it's completely
Okay, but it's
masked out.
so weird. So it's on the Universal lot here in L.A.
Yeah, which is so funny because they, again, when they're watching these clips of the original movie, like they have Vince Vaughn, who I think is terrified of the idea of like running down these steps super quick, and I think it's another reason, like when you're playing this character, maybe that's another reason they cast Vince Vaughn, because he's tall.
He's so tall.
But like, okay, so you get cast to play Anthony Perkins, who's extremely tall
He's
and like
6'3", I
lanky.
think.
He's like a string bean, and he's just
Yeah.
running down these steps from the house to the motel, and Vince is watching and is like, "Oh my god, I'm gonna break my neck."
Yeah,
like
because Vince is even taller. He's 6'5", I think.
yeah, but it's so crazy how he just like how fast he makes it down those steps, and Vince is trying to do it the exact same way, and I'm like, I'm gonna kill myself.
Yeah, he's
on
like hopping
accident.
steps,
Yeah.
dude.
But it's fascinating that just because they almost like put themselves in a box working with this original set, because if you're choreographing stuff on the original set and you have an actor that's a certain physicality and height, and it's like, oh shit, I need to accommodate for that. It's interesting. Like getting into the weeds like that with it is interesting. Again, interesting in theory.
Oh, I have a question. Yeah, I have a question for you. Did you look up to see if the name in the guest book was the same in the original?
Oh, Michael Scott.
Yeah,
I did not.
The person
I
who was at the
forgot.
Bates Motel prior to Marion Crane was Michael Scott.
And I couldn't find. Wasn't sure if that name was in there in the original. But it's funny because like The Office wouldn't have come out yet. It's just so funny coincidence.
Yeah.
But yeah, even like everything in the motel looks exactly the same. It's truly nuts. Like it is so bizarre watching them choreograph themselves to like lean through the doorway at the exact same time, and all the art on the wall is the exact
God,
same.
that would
and
feel so constricting as a performer.
it would. It would be exhausting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And yeah, they also redo the same effects as the original. I'm thinking with the driving scenes.
Mm-hmm.
Because the driving scenes in this remake look old-fashioned and I think bad.
They do the rear projection
Yeah.
car, or so like think of any 60s movie or 60s TV show, or like Toonces, the driving cat.
Yeah.
Like that, like rear projection driving is what they do in this. And it's so fun watching the behind the scenes where it's all the crew running with like lights. They are like have lights in their hands and they run past the car to make it look like there's cars moving past, and they have giant like reflector boards that they're spinning around and stuff. It's cool to watch them do it, but it ends up, it looks super cheesy. It's so weird when you think about remaking something shot for shot. Like the little changes you have to decide whether or not you want to make, because like
you could stick a camera on front of a car and actually drive down a road in 1998. You have that technology.
It must have been weird to have the discussions of like, okay, what parts do we just totally diverge here? Because I think once you decide, okay, we're making this as close to the original as possible, but then you realize, well, we're in 1998, so it's got to be $400,000 instead.
Yeah.
Well, we're in 1998 and we have different technology, so we have to think of that too. And we also need to think about the clothes, and we need to think about, oh, it's weird, them having this illicit affair isn't so scandalous tonight. So it's like, how far do you take it? Where like, what do you keep? What do you change?
And they didn't change the affair thing.
No.
So it
just
comes off
feels
as weird in
very
this
Christian.
because like they're not having an affair.
That's the
Like
thing,
both
it's
of them
not
are
an affair.
legally single.
The thing in the original is like, I mean, in this one too, is so Marion is seeing her boyfriend is divorced, and the scandal is that he's still paying alimony. So it's like that's it. It's just, I guess, not proper for him to be in a relationship with some. It's like it hasn't been long enough, I guess. It just is like,
it's so weird.
I don't know, but Yeah,
but
so
they
that's not
left it
really-
like that in
That's not
98.
really different. The other thing too that I noticed is this remake, even if they're not doing it intentionally, I think really anticipates stuff that's going to happen in ways that the original doesn't. Like the part I noticed it the most is that initial scene where he shows Mary in her room and he goes, oh, and this is the bathroom, and he flips the lights on. And the lighting of that bathroom is so different than everything else that's come before in this movie. Like he flips those lights on, it's this blown out fluorescent,
So blown out.
bluish, very 90s. I love it. And it's interesting, the guy who did the cinematography for this movie, I recognized his name and it was driving me nuts, but he is Christopher Doyle. He did a lot of Wong Kar-wai movies, like In the Mood for Love and Chungking Express.
Oh, okay.
So like all those colors and like that's so
Yeah.
signature. I love it. Like very 90s, colorful, dreamy. But yeah, so he flips on the bathroom light and it feels like we're anticipating, like it's the bathroom. Like it's the infamous bathroom. It's colored differently. It's lit differently. We're all waiting for the scene in the bathroom. So like it's anticipating it, or like the original is not, because it's a twist in the original and no one saw it coming. But this version is like, oh, it's the infamous bathroom. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it telegraphs it more. I also noticed that a lot of the shots are closer on people. Like just during conversations, in that first scene, especially when they're in the hotel room, instead of being wider shots that show more of both actors, it's like really close-up shots on the characters. And
Yeah, I think that's just another way to update it to feel a bit more modern, because if you look at older movies,
it feels slow when the
it's
shots are further
slow.
away.
Yeah, older movies, you have wider shots, more people in them, less edits, way less edits.
Yeah.
And I think The Matrix especially cited as a movie that like really changed editing. That and like I know
Born Identity.
Yes,
Changed it
Born
forever.
Identity
Yeah.
is a big one. But there were, I think the 90s especially is a big time period for like just changes in editing and way shots are composed and stuff. Everything is faster, closer. Yeah, so I think that's totally right. There's even that weird close up of the fly on the side, on like the bedside table.
That's another thing is this movie, I'm pretty sure the original doesn't have recurring fly imagery. It just has at the end when she's like, I wouldn't hurt a fly. But this movie is like, oh, that's a famous thing from the end.
It's anticipating it.
So exactly, it's more telegraphing because from that first scene, there's that very close-up shot of the fly on, again, a very disgusting looking sandwich.
Yeah.
It's like thick white bread with tomato it's gross.
Yeah, it's nasty. Yeah, so like those little things where we're anticipating future scenes are the mark of someone making this who loves the original. And just little things like or not little things because this would have been insane to shoot, but the opening shot, so the opening in the original, it's like Phoenix, Arizona, and it's the wide shot of the hotel, and then we kind of cut to the interior.
Oh, in the original?
Yeah, there's not that sweeping.
I do like the first shot of this movie.
Yes,
it's
that
like
is
a
how
helicopter shot. That,
Hitchcock wanted to do this.
That makes sense.
This was his plan for the opening, is this like really long swooping shot where it's like wide city shot and then it goes into the hotel window.
Without breaking.
It's
or seemingly
very
without
cool.
breaking. It's very good.
And it looks like AI was done with composites and mats because they
that
have
makes
some
sense,
behind the scenes stuff of like, it's just a window surround. It's like black matting and they zoom in on the window. So I think it was just one big composite shot. But I guess Hitchcock wanted to do that and he didn't. And so then Gus Van Sant's like, well, we're going to do it in this version because that's how he wanted it done.
The opening shot was, it was going to be this like flying shot through the city streets, and then it was going to like go into a window. And at the time, I think that the technology was just very, very early. And today it's like something that's pretty common. We just sort of did what they said they were planning to do.
And minor difference in the titles at the beginning. In the original, it just says the date and like it gets to the time, but in this one it specifies the year. It says 1998, just so you're not left wondering what kind of year is this.
Yeah, and the titles are in color too. They're like green. It's funny because they're this Reanimator green, which is weird because Reanimator has essentially the Psycho theme song for its theme.
Yeah. Oh, and Julianne Moore gets to kick Norman Bates at the end.
That's right. Yeah, she kicks Norman Bates. It's like, oh, feminism.
Yeah, women power.
Girl power. It's the 90s, baby. Oh, and they even got Just speaking of ties to the original one, Hilton Green was the AD, like the assistant director on the original, and he came in to be a technical advisor on the. It is truly crazy how many people who were involved with the original came to work on this.
Yeah, that is weird.
It's so weird. I wonder if, because when did Anthony Perkins die? He wouldn't have been able to see this.
I think early 90s,
Oh,
maybe?
okay. Because I was like, would he have lived long enough to be aware of this being made?
No,
okay.
no.
That would have been interesting if he was alive when this was made. Like, how would he have felt about it? My guess is he wouldn't have been a fan.
Probably not.
I think he felt very territorial over that character to the point where... isn't it like he was a little difficult to work with? Not like in that he's a bad person, but just he knows that character so well that taking direction on it
I
is
think
hard.
that's what I've heard with some of the sequels.
Yeah.
I'm not positive.
Yeah, but that happens if you like live in a character's head for so long, like having a director come in who you haven't worked with before on this character. It's like, you're gonna feel like you know them better than this rando director, even though that's tough. That's a tough spot for both of them to be in, I think. Oh, and then the very last thing, and I'm glad we just let the credits roll, because over the credits they have the entire bit of them pulling out the car. The last shot of the 60s one is just...
It's shorter than I remembered.
What, the shot
last
of the
shot
car?
in the 1960 one, because they start pulling out the car and then it's like immediately like the end.
Yeah, it's
and I was
the
like,
end,
oh, I
and
thought we saw it come out
cuts to-
more.
Nope, the remake though, you get to see the whole car being pulled out and the crew being like, all right, pack it up, boys, we're going home. It's kind of a neat long take.
Yeah, I think it like pulls out a lot and goes into the air.
It's
as you
pretty
see an
cool,
overhead
yeah.
shot of the whole area.
But the very last thing, and I'm so glad we did this, we let it play out, there's a special thanks to John Woo for letting them borrow his kitchen knife.
Yep.
So
There's
allegedly the knife in this is John Woo's.
Also, the credits revealed that Rob Zombie's Living Dead Girl was on the soundtrack, and we were like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And it's playing very faintly in the scene when Marion trades in her car. And I went back, and because I love that song, and I'm like listening for it. I'm like,
It's very,
it is there.
very
Holy
faintly
shit.
in the background. Yeah.
And it's, some blatant foreshadowing. She is a living
She
dead
is a
girl
living dead
because
girl.
we all know she's going to die soon.
Yeah. And I guess that's it. It's like, how much can you... It was weird, like, watching this and realizing we have to review this remake, but it's so similar to the original that how much of it can we review?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know? Like, how do you review a movie that is so closely tied to this other movie? It was so weird.
Well, I think you did a good job with the research and getting into why it was made and what makes it interesting in theory.
Yes, in theory. And like, this tanked when it came out. Audiences hated it. Critics hated it. Some critics enjoyed it. Quentin Tarantino apparently likes this version better than the original. And like, I love Quentin.
Okay, Quentin.
He's like one of my favorite filmmakers. I don't what? Sometimes I could just imagine. No, you see, man, it's like this idea, right? Of like the author. And yeah, I can imagine him also getting into like the in theory part of why it's cool. But yeah. So there it is.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
Congrats on 100 episodes, baby.
Thank you.
I'm proud of you.
Thank you all for sticking with us for 100 episodes.
Yeah, over 2 years now.
Yeah, it's so nuts.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy. But it was nice, like, not feeling the pressure of 100 episodes because I already knew what we were going to do. It was like, we're doing the Psycho remake. Easy.
Yep.
I didn't have to plan any big thing. It just was going to be the Psycho It always was going to be the Psycho remake.
It was always
Psycho 1998. Yeah, well, cool. Thank you all so much. I hope you're all staying safe.
Yeah,
and
keep doing that.
Yeah, God.
Go ahead and follow Dead Meat on social media at Dead Meat James on Twitter and Instagram.
I'm at Carebeck, Carebecc on Twitter and Instagram. And if you want merch, store.com. We are getting golden chainsaws back in stock. I'm working on that right now. Yeah.
Nice. Feel free to email deadmeatpod@gmail.com with feedback and suggestions.
I'm trying to reply back to emails.
She is.
I'm like slowly getting through. They got so backed up. I'm replying to emails from like a year ago. So
that's fine though.
Yeah, I try. There's a lot.
Until next time though, I'm James.
I'm Chelsea.
And this has been the Dead Meat Podcast.